Hello, my name is Sarah Howe. I'm a poet and a trustee of the Griffin Foundation, speaking to you from London. It's a truly international conversation today, since it's my pleasure and honour to chat with Iman Mersal, one of Egypt's foremost contemporary poets, now based at the University of Alberta, Canada, and her translator, Robyn Creswell, a specialist in Arabic literature and translation at Yale. The happy occasion for this interview is that the book they've worked on together, The Threshold, which gathers work from 4 of Iman's collections and is published by Farrar, Straus and Giroux, has been shortlisted for the 2023 International Griffin Poetry Prize. Iman and Robyn, many congratulations on your shortlisting.
Thank you.
Iman, how does it feel to meet these poems of yours, the oldest of which date back to the mid-1990s, I believe, in this new setting? So a different language, of course, but also keeping new company and drawing new threads of connection between them.
It's like meeting yourself in the past. So yeah, for me, the selection, I think, includes the 2 important moments in my life, as well as I think in poetry, modern Arabic poetry since the 90s until now, because the first 2 books were like the beginning of kind of a movement in Arabic poetry. And I remember very well all of the discussions and debates about writing about individuality or everyday life, or writing in terms of genre, قصيدة نثر. And I think this movement settled down, but I did not witness it because I went to Canada and I started to write about completely different questions. Yeah.
And Robyn, what drew you to want to translate Iman's work?
Well, I was a student of Arabic poetry and had been studying and reading about some of the classic, now canonical Arab poets of the latter half of the 20th century, poets like Mahmoud Darwish and Adonis and Badr Shakar al-Sayyad. And these are poets whom I admire greatly and who have enormous kind of presence and a kind of epic presence even on the page. And Iman's poetry, which was recommended to me by an Egyptian friend, a common friend of ours named Wael Oshri, was just completely unlike anything that I had been reading in Arabic. And really the impression that I got was all of a sudden I seemed to be reading about the present. It was kind of real life and it was contemporary life. And so when I became a poetry editor at the Paris Review, this was in 2010, and I was sending out notes to poets whom I admired. Iman was on the top of the list, and I wrote to her, and she sent me some poems, and away we went.
Thank you both. I was so interested to read your introduction to the book, Robyn, and learn about the poetic form in which Iman writes, the Qazidat al-Nathar, or prose poem, which I understand is sometimes lineated and sometimes not, but the sort of almost revolutionary charge that it bears in modern Egyptian poetics. Iman, could you say something about the importance of this particular choice of form, but also maybe form more generally in your writing?
I really think during that time, early 90s, these few young poets did not choose form as much as they were trying to find their own voices. Next to grand narrative about nation, great poets too, such as Mahmoud Darwish and Adonis. I mean, when I think about it now, I feel it's so difficult to be a poet in Arabic because there are so many great poets actually in 20th century. So, so that in the process of finding your voice, escaping the lyrical tune and the musicality of older generations' poems, and also its questions and topics, brought us closer to what is called the prose poem than free verse, let's say, in Arabic. But in terms of genre, since I write, nonfiction and also academic work, I just think poetry is different. You can't predict it. You can't make a plan to write a poem tomorrow. It takes really a long time to find the right position in a new collection. So you might write so many poems, and in the end, you select just a few of them to go with, to walk with in life for a while until you write a new poem. So poetry just is, I think, is very mysterious in a way, because you can't predict it.
Thank you, Iman. And Robyn, what was it like trying to capture the spirit of these poems in English, prosy or otherwise? Were there any particular challenges that you met along the way?
Well, what was it like? For the most part, it was a delight. I feel that you never know. You might like a poet on the page, and then if you're lucky enough to be able to translate some of their work, you may or may not get along with them as a person. It's always a kind of roll of the dice, what sort of relationship you might have with the author that you're translating. And I really feel like I was incredibly lucky with Iman, in the sense that she was always very exact about what portions of the translation, and we worked very, very closely together on the translation. She always was very exact about what wasn't working in the English, but never imposed any solutions upon me as a translator. So, and that's really a really ideal and uncommon, I think, working method for translators. It was incredibly helpful for me, and really was an education for me in Arabic poetry. I mean, as far as challenges go, Iman's poetry is very personal. And there were moments when I remember Iman saying, something to the effect of, "Robyn, you have to imagine that you were a young woman in early 90s Cairo, and that this was the scene." And that was challenging. And I don't know that I always got it right. I did my best. But it is the kind of poetry that I felt myself over and over again, trying to imagine myself in the place. And it often is a poetry of place and also of voice. And Iman helped me along, and I think we got to a book that we both like.
Iman, we've heard about Robyn's recollection of your conversations as poet and translator. How did that process feel from your end?
It was really enjoyable. Sometimes it was frustrating, because I knew that Robyn is trying to do his best, and sometimes I was not able to help too, right? So, but he would disappear for 2 weeks or so and come back with something that absolutely perfect. So I learned with Robyn actually not to be scared at all about my voice moving from Arabic to another language. I mean, I never, with other language that I don't know, I never felt worried. But with English, because I know some English, I was always worried about English translation. But I learned with him that it's a process, and if the translator can really relate to the poems and can try to bring this tone of voice to his own language, it will work. And it's not a problem at all if the translator choices and voice is there as well. It's actually beautiful to have this in translation.
Robyn, I loved your anecdote of the sort of challenge of the thought experiment of imagining yourself as the teenage girl in Cairo. Do you feel like you see yourself in these versions, these renditions of the poems in English, or is that something that you would have almost have consciously been trying to work against or efface?
For the most part, that wasn't my approach to the translations. I mean, it wasn't. I did try to imagine myself into the scenes. And Cairo is a city that I have lived in and which I love, and that helped a little bit. And my memories of Cairo, and I was kind of in Cairo in my 20s, my early 20s, and so I think that probably comes through in some of the word choices that I use. But and I of course I think that poetry is always aiming to universalize the particular, right? I mean, I think we've all been 20. We have all had some, not all had some experience of a Cairene bohemia, but I think the feelings of alienation, of rage at one's peers and parents, or elders, a certain kind of disaffection from a certain kind of feeling of lostness. And this is really the early poems that I'm talking about. Those were things that, of course, I think most people could very much feel again. Those parts weren't challenging to imagine myself into.
Thank you very much. I believe there's a poem that you'd both be happy to share with us today. Would that be all right?
Absolutely.
And Iman, would you maybe like to say something about why you chose this particular piece as well?
Because it's short, actually.
Good reason.
طيران. رأسي على كتفك. لابد أن المضيفة ظنت أننا ذاهبان لشهر عسل. من غرب المحيط إلى شرقه نوم آمن بشعر منقوش ويدين مضمومتين على الصدر. وكتفك وسادتي. أنت شربت كل هذا النبيذ بحذر حتى لا توقظ امرأة لا تعرف اسمها. لن أخبرك أنني صححت 20 بحثاً عن الأدب ما بعد الكولونيالي، وطبخت طعاماً يكفي طفلين لمدة أسبوع، ولففت والتر بنيامين حتى أحميه في ملابسي الداخلية، ولم أنسى الكمبيوتر ولا شاحن الكاميرا ولا المسودات ولا كل ذلك مما يحرق الأعصاب، حتى أنني نمت على كتف رجل لا أعرف اسمه. لابد أننا شبيهان. حياة كل منا كثيرة، ولكنها تبدو في لحظة كهذه بلا تاريخ ولا مستقبل، مثل زجاجة صغيرة من المياه تشربها على عجل ثم تلقيها في أول سلة مهملات.
This is called Up in the Air. With my head on your shoulder, the flight attendant must have thought we were honeymooners, heading east over the ocean, sleeping peacefully with disheveled hair, hands folded on my chest, your shoulder as my pillow. You carefully sipped your wine so as not to disturb a woman whose name you didn't know. I won't tell you that I've graded 20 papers on post-colonial literature, cooked enough food to feed 2 children for a week, and wrapped Walter Benjamin protectively in my underwear, not forgetting to pack my computer, camera charger, and manuscripts, all of which left my nerves so frayed that I fell asleep on the shoulder of a man whose name I didn't know. You and I are probably very much alike, each with a full life, which nevertheless seems at moments like these to have neither past nor future, like a bottle of water, drunk in a hurry and tossed away. Don't ask me where I'm headed, just because you let me borrow your shoulder for 5 hours, or because you refrained, for my sake, from getting up to go to the bathroom. I might not have actually been asleep.
I love the twist in the tale of that one. Thank you so much, both of you. This has been a really really interesting conversation, and I love the poem. Congratulations again. I'm really looking forward to meeting you both and hearing you read at the summer Griffin Prize ceremony in Toronto. Till then, very best to you both, and thank you everyone at home for listening.
Thank you, Sarah.
Bye-bye.